Now this sermon, relationships are hard. And actually, because of the way I pay attention to myself in relationships, this was an easy one to write. We humans are made to be in relationship. I like when you begin with an obvious fact. Okay. According to the second creation story of Genesis, God creates man and woman, for it is not good that one be alone. Why not? James Weldon Johnson, inspired by this story, seeks to answer this question in his epic poem, The Creation. Imagining a lonesome God who breathed creation into existence and then, still sensing a forlorn emptiness in the cosmic soul, decided to make humankind. I like the way I wrote that. Okay. God, lonely and longing for companionship, creates. So we, created in the image of this God, live and long to be in relationship. This truth of our elemental ontology stirs up within me a lifelong inveterate questioner, my most Job-like inquiry of the divine. God, if, or more truly, as relationships are essential to our humanity, then why must they be so difficult? As they're so necessary, could you not have made them easier to do?
Yes.
Relationships are hard, whether of parents and children, siblings, spouses, partners and lovers, friends and acquaintances, whether personal or professional, whether ourselves with ourselves. Relationships are hard. Perhaps it is because, as Paul says, now we see in a mirror dimly, unable at any given time to see ourselves wholly clearly or to know ourselves fully. Hence, it is difficult to be in relationship when, truth to tell, we're not always sure who we are. Relationships are hard. See, this goes on. Perhaps it is because, as much as we strive to achieve some measure of self-actualization and self-affirmation, we learn and know much about ourselves by looking at our reflections in the eyes of others. We may prize independence, but the developmental stage beyond that, in some sense indicating a greater measure of growth, is that of interdependence, an interconnectedness one with another. Yet, even knowing this, it is a terrible truth, I think, that in our relationships with one another, sometimes what is reflected, what we see of ourselves in and through the reactions of those around us, are what I call our lesser lights, our less than admirable traits, often in the face of which we, in guilt and shame, turn away. Certainly, emotionally, at times too, physically, thus interrupting, even breaking the cycle of connection. Any of this ring true to okay, I could read more, but it's just too depressing. So, okay, let me see, what question was I going to ask you? Oh, this sermon was based upon the story of the Samaritan woman at the well, 4th chapter of John. Mm-hmm. And this is the woman where Jesus says, and she says, well, I'm going to go tell my husband. And he says, you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now with is not your husband. Now in that story, she also comes to the well at high noon. Who goes to fetch water at high noon? No one. And she's a Samaritan. Jesus is a Jew. She's a woman, he's a man. They shouldn't even be having a conversation. Yet they engage in dialogue. He's speaking of spiritual things. She's thinking of physical things. When he talks about living water, she's trying to find a bucket to lower into the well. Nothing about that dialogue and interaction is right. Yet she is my model of because she had 5 husbands. And by the way, you know Jewish midrash? What was not in the scripture, you just kind of reflect and fill in the blanks. I said, why would she have 5 husbands? So I thought, well, maybe the first time she married for love, but that didn't work out. Then the next time she tried it again for love, because we would try again, that didn't work out. Then the 3rd husband, well, he was a ne'er-do-well. The 4th husband, he was abusive. The 5th husband, he was a drunk. So but she didn't get married anymore, but she still lived with someone. She is my paradigm for someone who doesn't give up trying, even though relationships are abominably hard. Okay? So that's what that's about. All right?